Welcome to this exciting tutorial, where we will dive into the world of game development by creating a resource management game using Java. In this series, I will guide you through every single step of the development process, from setting up the project to implementing the core game mechanics. So, whether you are a beginner or an experienced developer, this video is for you. Let's start by setting up our development environment. We will need the Java Development Kit, JDK, installed, so please ensure you have JDK 8 or higher. Additionally, we will be using an integrated development environment, IDE, like IntelliJ IDEA or Eclipse. If you haven't already, please download and install your preferred IDE. Once you have your IDE ready, create a new Java project. Let's call it Resource Management Game. Now, let's create a package named Game. This will help us keep our code organized. In most IDEs, you can do this by right-clicking on the SRC folder, going to New, and selecting Package. Next, let's create the main class for our game. Inside the Game package, create a new Java class named Game. This class will contain the main method that starts our application. Now that we have a starting point, let's implement the game loop. The game loop will continuously update the game state and render the game. For simplicity, we will keep running it until the user decides to exit. We also need to define the update and render methods. The update method will handle all game logic, like resource generation and user input, while the render method will display the current state of the game to the players. Great! Now let's introduce resources into our game. We will create a new class called Resource that will model a resource type. Each resource will have a name and an amount. Next, we'll manage our resources. To do this, we will create a class named Resource Manager. This class will handle multiple resources, allowing us to add, remove, and check resource amounts. Now that we have our Resource Manager, let's create some resources during the game initialization. We will add a few initial resources like wood and stone. It's time to implement some gameplay mechanics. One core mechanic could be resource collection. We could create a method that simulates collecting resources over time, adding to our total. Let's now create a simple user interface. For the purpose of this tutorial, we will stick to console inputs and outputs. We can add a method to handle user commands, like checking resource amounts or exiting the game. Integrating our input handling into the main game loop will allow us to interact with the game while it runs. Each tick of the game loop will check for user input and update the game accordingly. Next, let's add some feedback to the user when they collect resources. We can extend our collect resources method to include print statements indicating how many resources were collected. We can enhance the game even further by implementing a way to spend resources, perhaps to build structures. Let's first create a class called Structure. This class will represent a buildable structure in the game. Let's now modify the game class to handle structures, allowing the player to build them by spending resources. Now players can build structures using their resources. To add complexity, we could also implement additional structure types and mechanics as our game evolves. This adds a strategic layer to the game, as players will have to manage resources effectively to build more structures. To keep the game interesting, let's add a simple randomized event system. This will simulate events that can affect the player's resources, like resource depletion or sudden bonuses. Integrate this event into your game loop to create surprises for the player in each cycle. At this stage, we've built a solid foundation for a resource management game. You can see how adding features like resource collection, building structures, and random events create engaging gameplay. Naturally, there's room for enhancements. As a next step, consider implementing a saving/loading feature that allows players to save their progress and resume later. This could be done using Java's file handling capabilities. For now, let's keep moving. In addition to features mentioned, adding graphical user interfaces or multiplayer capabilities could drastically improve your game. Although we are focused on the console version for this tutorial, moving to a GUI using JavaFX or another library can greatly enhance the user experience. We now conclude our tutorial on implementing a resource management game in Java. I hope you've learned valuable concepts and feel inspired to continue developing your unique game. In this project, we have touched upon game loops, resource management, input handling, and even random events. The sky's the limit with what you can build next. If you enjoyed this tutorial, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more content. Feel free to leave comments with your questions or ideas for future videos. Happy coding, and see you next time.